That sound you're hearing is the sound of an alarm clock waking your ass up because the boss is back. Fuckers. I'm back. I'm back now, and we've had episode 893 sitting in a TSI for 3 goddamn weeks.
All discipline out the window.
It is October 10th, 2024, and I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
Mr. John Lindemann.
I guess you have the throne back, James.
It never left. Literally, because I was here. And not Mr. Guillaume Veillat, who texted me earlier saying he wouldn't be able to make it. This is episode 896. So for 3 straight weeks, people have been looking at police officer Donald Duck staring back at them.
Well, if there's one...
You're not going to get TSIs out of me, James. There's certain things I'll do and there's certain things I won't do.
I don't think you'd disagree, would you, that the one thing that is truly, inarguably irreplaceable about you is your ability to manufacture those images.
It's you're not wrong, actually. It has proven that is, in fact, the one thing that cannot be replaced.
Will not be replaced, I think, is more accurate.
You say will, I say can. So I'm going to quiz you, John. How much of the 2 shows that I was not on do you think I listened to?
I don't think you listened to any of it.
I have listened to the entirety of 894.
Okay.
And I have listened to most of the first segment of 895.
All right, some of my best work, yes.
So I wanted to at least get through Zelda because that's what I'm going to talk about when we get to new business. But first, fuck new business. We have Alarmo to talk about. This is the weirdest shit I've seen Nintendo do in a long time, and I am goddamn thrilled. I am so happy. This is insane behavior from Nintendo. I have missed you so much, you crazy, crazy motherfuckers.
Yeah, I guess
John,
they ran out of lawyers to go after software pirates for it.
Have you bought an Alarmo yet, John Lindemann?
No, I don't need an Alarmo. I do not need
Have
an Alarmo.
You bought?
I would say it's firmly no cause for Alarmo.
Have you bought an Alarmo yet, Greg Leahy, in spite of that?
Well, yeah, but we mustn't forget the Alarmo at the same time, mustn't we?
Oh, no, they're going to be hearing the sounds from the video as this segment goes because I'm on the edit this week.
Oh my goodness! It felt like something fell out of a time warp. You know, this is, you know, we remember the days of the quality of life initiative.
Yeah, I dug up my like 9-page article on it and posted it back in the Discord with all caps. Nothing ever dies at Nintendo.
No, yeah, that's a fair point. We've talked about this, you know, over the years many times that, you know, they do sort of, you know, seem like they keep things around somewhere in some case that maybe they could go back to eventually. And it just feels like somehow, for some reason, you know, this thing that presumably a lot of the development and, you know, sort of impetus behind it would have been that, you know, quality of life initiative from, you know, we really kind of think of as being something from, you know, so many years ago. It's kind of a thing of the past, you know, where it's just like this more, as he said, implied there, James, you know, this more sort of desperate and more crazy Nintendo that's like, we've got all the irons in the fires, guys, don't worry, you know, like we diversify, we're going to do no stone unturned in our quest to find ways to make more revenue, you know, and obviously as the Switch just, you know, became increasingly the juggernaut, you know, that it's been, that all kind of ebbed away. And yet, from seeing through some crevice in time, this has emerged into our reality.
I wrote the quality of life article in 2014. It's 2024.
God, it is that long ago. I mean, I think of it as being a relic of the past, but good Lord, yeah, that's.
And so, like, we knew they were working on a sleep sensor, like, in 2018. Like, this shit is psychotic. Oh my God. Oh, it was so I was in the Discord that day when the video dropped, and I was howling. I mean, I was doubled over laughing. It was the dumbest shit I had ever seen. So I'm sitting there watching the video, and somebody posted the Nintendo UK, because I think their YouTube video went up first, like a minute and a half after it went live. Like somebody was just happened to be there. And that gets to the last question. Have you bought Alarmo yet, James Jones? Who the fuck's asking? What I will say is that it was in my shopping cart 7 minutes after the video went live, which is impressive because the video is 5 minutes long. Have I bought it yet? No. Am I going to buy it? Probably. Why? Because I'm on a podcast about Nintendo, and this is the dumbest shit possible that I could subject a new business segment to since fucking Wappy Dog. That's why. Because this is the kind of deviant behavior you're going to get from me when Nintendo gives me the opportunity to read the following sentence because I think it's important. Let me make sure I get the exact right sentence. It's possible there may be multiple people. Some families have multiple people in their bedroom. Oh, where is it?
I guess.
This is truly like. So they did a Nintendo developer interview on this, and it's insane. Like, this is actually nuts. Because I want to just give you the heading. That an alarm clock that is out of the ordinary, made by Nintendo. It's like, are you actually nuts, or are you? And then you read a little bit more, and you're like,
Well, and also to give it its full name, it's like Nintendo Sound Clock. Alarmo.
Yes, Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. And yeah, I was in fact very alarmed when this came up. I agree. It's here we go. The motion sensor, we'll get to it, is designed to be at its most responsive and function best when Alarmo is used by one person. But I'm sure there are many families who sleep together in the same room. Because of the nature of the sensor, even if one person gets out of bed, the sensor may detect that other family members are still in bed and continue to play the alarm. Of course, if everyone gets out of bed, it will stop. However, this situation varies depending on the household, so in order to accommodate a variety of circumstances, we added a mode that will stop the alarm when you press the dial button. These people wrote the sentence, yes, the motion... I'm sure there are many families that sleep together in the same room, ellipses. The situation varies depending on household.
Yeah, that's sort of like probably they just didn't have to say anything there.
Yeah, they could have just said, like, well, if there's two people in the bed, that's why we have the button mode.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we have to word it in the most I am a serial killer talking about Buffalo Bill kind of way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or I have never actually met humans, so I think this is how humans behave.
It is my understanding
it's
that
it's the Kang and Kodos.
It really is. Yeah.
Marketing manual.
All right, here. Tamori-san and myself, about half of the development team members, are using it in an environment where other family members are present, but I don't think we've heard many complaints that it's not user-friendly. I want to repeat that last phrase because it's very relevant. The two people leading the project and some of their team members have not heard many complaints from their own families that it's not user-friendly. That's not to say they haven't heard any complaints. They haven't heard many complaints, despite the fact there's literally an engineer on the project in the room with the person, which is damning. But Nintendo made an alarm clock. I just want to start with that sentence, because that sentence alone is enough to derail an entire episode of Radio Free Nintendo. So I'm going to let it. But I described this in the Discord for NWR as the Chicxulub impact incident of Nintendo announcements for this podcast. Because it's just like, no, we're going to fucking wipe out a whole segment with this. This is too stupid. They created an alarm clock that uses a motion sensor. In their own words, because people probably don't want a camera in their bedroom. Fair. That can determine, based on how you move, if you've gotten up out of bed or if you're just kind of stirring around. And in order to encourage you to get up, it plays music and sound effects from Nintendo games at a sort of increasing harriedness, although they don't say that explicitly, to sort of motivate you out of bed. So it's like waking up inside a video game, their way of marketing this thing, not my joke. We do not tell jokes on this podcast. This is a humor-free zone. And yet, Nintendo out here trying to wake you up inside a video game like it's the 37th goddamn isekai anime of the season being broadcast sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Isn't the notion something like it detects motion, so like if you start moving more, the sound effects happen more or something? So it's like
yes,
it could be like coin sounds, or it could. I think the most worrying is the Splatoon like getting shot sound, like the
yeah. There were times when we considered whether or not to have game-like elements, but we decided against it from a quite early stage of development. Tamori, if we implemented game-like elements, it can be assumed that users would continue to play with it in bed. In that case, it might end up disturbing sleep instead. We don't want to create that kind of situation because we want users to wake up and feel refreshed, so we decided early on to exclude such playable elements. These fucking people, believe they would have created such a compelling alarm clock that people would not go to sleep on time and would wake up feeling unfresh. I just want you to contemplate the phrase, we didn't want to make our alarm clock too compelling lest we create many people with bad insomnia, as a thought. I want that thought rolling around in your brain, because there's no recovering from that thought. That thought will live with you forever. You will be old, senile, you have forgotten your daughter's name, you'll think she's part of the staff, but you'll remember that in 2024, one of Nintendo's engineers expressed a concern that their alarm would simply be too compelling for people in bed to sleep. That is the kind of insane thought that will live with you. So take that to your grave, because the rest of us are as well. I just... we want to improve sleep hygiene, so we don't want to make your alarm as interesting as we could have made it. I also want to talk about the fact that at one point, they're like, if your alarm is connected to the internet, my immediate thought was, oh no. It'll download extra themes. It's like, great. What are the extra themes? Who can say? But,
well, we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing New Horizons, all right? That's what they've mentioned so far, I believe.
As being add-ons or being what's already there?
As being ones that'll come later. They're not, okay. Because people already have it, right? They have it right now, because it's like the New York store in America, so... Like, people have, and for them that have it now,
Scarfgate HQ,
they will not be able to have the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe theme yet, or whatever, but it's coming. But you know what this offers the possibility of is, I feel like, you know, the idea of it escalating to kind of further cajole you out of bed is Baby Park. Because that is a very special sort of race in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh, it's special, all right.
Because it's so short that there's like 7 laps. And what they do is they make the song go slightly faster each time until the very last lap, it's like almost unintelligible. It's just like... you just work your way through those 7 tiers of speed from Baby Park, I think, and that's how you get people out of bed.
What if it just keeps speeding up? It's like there's a YouTube video that's just B-movie, but every time there's a B pun, it doubles in speed. Mm-hmm. What if it just keeps doubling forever, the Baby Park theme speed? So by the end, it's just like a half-second singularity
it's just essentially just a beep, and then it's just an orthodox beeping alarm. Because no, trust me, we did play the Baby Park theme. It went so fast that it was indistinguishable from a beep.
Well, I mean, if they want a sound that would get me out of bed, no problem whatsoever, is if they just had the coin sound from when you downloaded something on the Wii Virtual Console.
Yeah,
just sit there and take forever.
It does.
I would never sleep again.
I think there may be the Mario Odyssey one or something like that has like coin sounds,
Yes,
and that's the thing.
it's just
So
coins.
If you just like start waving your hand around it, but you could relive the experience of it struggling to finish a download on the Wii Virtual
To download
Console.
those 16 megabytes.
Yep.
Yeah, oh god, it's a TGCD game. It could be here a while.
We're gonna be here a while. Bling, 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 bling.
So I was out the last 2 weeks because my girlfriend was visiting. So this was her first time at my house. So we were, doing normal shit. And like this thing got announced and she had flown home Tuesday morning. So I sent this to her. I'm like, I'm going to buy this. It's very stupid. And the immediate response I got was, no, you don't need this. Don't buy that. And
you're like, it's my money.
no, I was like, but it's dumb. Like, that was my response. But it's stupid. I could talk about on the show how stupid it is. It's like, that's a very, inopportune use of $100. We'll word it that way. But then I saw the Nintendo developer interview. And I understood that these people are me. I am sitting in a project room and management's like, we want you to come up with something to do with this sensor. And I'm like, do you care what I do? No. What dumb bullshit can I do with this sensor? And these people went to management and said, we're thinking an alarm clock. And management didn't go, what the fuck? They were like, yeah, sure, whatever. Go nuts. Go make an alarm clock, you crazy people. And then they spent like 4 years on it. That's the part that's nuts. This isn't like, we did it. We hammered it out. We got it done. No, they've been working on this thing since during the pandemic. It's like, oh my God, this is like 4 or 5. This is an alarm clock 5 years in the making. This is demented behavior. This is the Nintendo I miss. This is just stupid and wonderful. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for this thing. I'm thrilled that this exists. Not because it's good, because it's probably not, but because it's just mind-boggling. It's like there's a whole part in there where they talk about like they would slightly change the shape and it would fuck up the sensor. And they'd have to figure out if it was a software, middleware, or hardware problem. And then they realized it's because they changed the 3D print slightly. And then they had to wait a day to test it because the only way to test it is go to bed. It's like, this is so stupid. What a wonderful product. What an absolutely deranged thing that at some point, 40 years down the road, did you know Nintendo made an alarm clock?
Yeah, I guess does this mean that the phone voice app is discontinued because that team obviously moved over onto this thing?
It would be a real shame if the phone voice app got discontinued. I don't know what I would do with my life. I haven't had that installed on my phone in like 4 years, but
me neither.
What if the phone voice app was able to talk to Alarmo? What if you could talk to your alarm? Ask it how your day is going, and it could tell you the current time. I also want to point out they talked about how they added an hourly chime. The last person I knew who had an hourly chime on a clock in their house was my grandmother, who had one that played bird sounds every hour. And it was the most god-awful, obnoxious thing in the world. The idea of Mario, woohoo! At like 2 o'clock in the afternoon while I'm sitting at my desk doing work makes me want to die. So, I need to own this thing. Also, who the fuck uses a desk side alarm in the era of smartphones? How big is your market for this? It's so small.
I know. It's a really weird product.
Like, I actually have a clock radio on my nightstand.
I mean, this would be great for kids. It really would be.
I guess. But do kids have problems getting up in the morning?
Yeah. At least they don't want to get up. It depends. It's like a curve, right? It's like kids start off getting up really early in the morning, and then eventually they become teenagers, and then they never get up.
Right. I never got out of that phase.
Yeah.
I like this phrase. In terms of hardware development, it was a real challenge to come up with the specifications from scratch. Game consoles I've worked up until now have certain rules, such as the shape of the hardware and number of buttons. But this time it's not a gaming console, so there were no such rules. Nintendo said, yeah, fuck it, go wild with the alarm clock. We don't care. And they're just like, okay, we're going to put one button on this thing. And a dial. Their alarm clock has a fucking dial. Oh, I love this. I love this thing so much. It's dumb. And I keep saying that. But, like, I want to be clear. That doesn't mean it's bad. That means the idea is, like, if you were to describe it to someone, they would think you are stupid. And they may well be correct in thinking that. But the point is not that, like, the people making it are dumb. It's that the people making it had no oversight whatsoever and went absolutely wild. I was listening to 893, and there's two problems I have with that, or four, and there's two problems I have with that episode. Two of the emails could have been answered in the context of Alarmo. What purchases do you regret? Which I would say 3 years from now, my answer will be Alarmo. And number two, when we talked about the Sony game, about not having management oversight on your project, let me introduce you to Sound Clock Alarmo. Because there's no way management was paying attention to this fucking thing. You want to make $100 alarm clock that detects when you're moving and is synced to the internet so we know all of people's motion data. We're going to find out when people are having sex by accident. Awesome. I love that for us. No, management's going to be like, no, you can't do that. That's stupid.
Can you imagine having sex with that Alarmo thing around and, like, basically you're sitting there and it's like bling 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 bling. Like, that's going to happen.
Yes, I can.
It's going to happen.
Yes,
like, this is the thing.
Yes. Well, I have to imagine it because I feel like once I put Alarmo on my nightstand, that's the end of my sex life forever.
It's like romance is dead. Alarmo killed it. Forget it.
She'd walk in and see fucking Olimar staring back at her on my clock and just walk out of the room. Nope, not into it anymore.
No.
But Olimar, he's right there. He's pulling Pikmin out of the ground when I move.
Yeah.
Every time. No. It's terrible. What an awful thought. And if you're wondering, how could you have thought of this, James? Well, let me tell you, because within about 20 minutes of seeing the video, I'd already had this thought and played it out in my head, what that would mean, and realized I need this thing even more than I did 15 minutes previous. It's so bad. This is like the exact kind of toxic brain rot that appeals to me in the most, like, demented way possible.
Well,
because
and this is much better. Like, Nintendo doing Alarmo Nintendo is much better than Nintendo grasping at straws Nintendo. You know? Yeah,
they're not even grasping at a straw here.
No,
because the straw implies there's something.
Well, this is just them having a lot of money and being like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. And probably they wanted to, like, they've kind of flirted with getting into this space with sleep monitoring and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's obviously something that they've wanted to get into for a while. And now they have the capital to do it, to just, like, blow it on this and just see where it goes. So it feels like it's like this is like some sort of incubator project where they're like, we got the money. Switch did well. Let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think I don't think you get here without flailing about Nintendo, because that is the genesis of the quality of life stuff. But also, that was absolutely ages ago, and it's sort of mutated or whatever into a period where they're much more comfy, and then this is the sort of weird form that it takes. I do have to mention when it went up on the UK My Nintendo store, which I think is the same as in the US for now. It's like if you're going to order it online, you have to be a Switch Online subscriber. So, it's one of those sweet perks that it gives us the opportunity to spend $100 or £90 sterling on this thing.
I know, I love that. Like, as a perk, you can spend another $100. You're welcome.
On an alarm clock, your favorite thing in your home.
Truly, you are spoiling us, Nintendo. But there also is, as this is fairly common with stuff like Amiibo, right? It'll say one per customer for that because there's a scalping problem with that. For whatever reason, with Alarmo, it's 4. Only 4 per customer.
Well, 1 for every member of your family.
I guess so. I guess they gotta maybe it's more in the category of like the like N64 online controller, where it's like, well, you might need 4 if you were going to replicate, a good old fashioned N64 multiplayer session. So yeah, it's in that category rather than the Amiibo category.
I like that there's an entire section of this developer. This developer interview is amazing. Like it is. One, it gives great insight into what I, as a developer, feel like every single goddamned day. Hearing the distinct challenges software and hardware developers face, I sense some difference in each department's culture. As developers who worked on different things, were there times when you couldn't understand each other in the first place? The response, it was like that all along. Laughs. This is the Iwata laughs after he burns somebody, and then it says everyone laughs. I've forgotten those. John, the 2 leads of this project are both designers. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the hellscape for the engineers?
Nothing would be final.
Fuzzy expressions are difficult to understand for system software programmers and hardware engineers who are used to working with precision. We'd go up for... the
engineers hated this project. They hated it. They were like, fuck Alarmo. I hope that project dies a fucking gruesome death.
We would tell them, make it go boing, and the programmers might come back with define boing. It's like, yeah, that's the right answer.
It is the right answer.
What the fuck do you mean by make it go boing?
Yep.
It's like, I can't imagine. About halfway through development, I started taking photos and video of myself falling asleep and waking up, and editing in sound effects to explain how I wanted the sound effects to play when I stretched and so on. The engineers were forced to watch videos of this man sleep.
Oh, you know what it's going to be, actually? Because we got a question, which we may as well answer. With the massive reaction to the Alarmo announcement. We had a few in, but what Mike from Chicago said, what video game music and sound effects would you most want to wake up to every morning after you inevitably get your Alarmos? And I mean, maybe it's going to be like the NES and Super NES minis, where it's like people crack it and they'll put, everything, like every Nintendo game ever will have some sort of, representation on this thing when the hackers are done. But it says your selections can be from first and third party titles. Perhaps you'd like to start every day to the soundscapes of Yoshi's Island, Lords of Thunder, Disaster Day of Crisis. Please describe the quote-unquote quality of life you expect to have after integrating Nintendo's latest hardware into your daily routine. Love the show, Pony.
Which Yoshi's Island was it that had the really obnoxious soundtrack? Was that DS or was that...
It was New Island.
Yeah,
but I mean,
there it is.
It with the kazoos, it's like basically it's meant to be like the Yoshi Elementary School band has got their hands
so bad.
Got their hands on a bunch of kazoos and went wild.
Imagine, you'd be out of bed in seconds to make that shit stop.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, if you just strict utility, then, you could go that way. I like Lords of Thunder, though. Oh, that's...
that would be pretty cool.
I'm going to start playing the Yoshi's New Island theme right here.
The kazoos.
It's just going to be under this conversation. I mean, Xenoblade would be some options, as you continue to refuse to wake up. They can just keep amping the music. Like, it starts out as like whatever the Gower Plains of that game is.
I think I mentioned this with the closing music last week. Like, so many of the day themes, they have that feeling of a day beginning.
Yeah.
Right? You know, because they're meant to kick in, you know, once it ticks over from night to day. But you've got to escalate it, haven't you? At some point, you've got to kick it into higher gear to get people out. So maybe the battle music just comes in all of a sudden.
It's like an average enemy, then it's like a strong enemy, and by the end, it's when you're fighting like one of those level 150 tyrants.
Yeah.
I think Xenoblade X offers more opportunity, but you have to deal with the Sawano music problem. And so by the end, it starts with the New LA Night theme, yeah, it's just in the background, and it just slowly ramps up until it finally ends with that god-awful Manon ship music, where it's just as awful as the Manon are. I was like, yeah, I'll wake up for that because I want it to stop. It's the perfect crime. They can make me listen to Manon music, which will make me extremely upset. But like there is good music to be had in some of that Xenoblade stuff, and they didn't get representation in this project, which is sad.
Maybe we've now entered the age of Alarmo DLC. We got tired. We got tired of every Nintendo Direct, even if it was for indies, whatever it was for. With so and so, we're going to find out about who the next Smash character is. Don't give a shit about that now. What we want is what is the next sound font for Alarmo, isn't it? That is going to be the question on everybody's lips from here till whenever, basically, until I can't imagine there's going to be a post Alarmo world. I mean, I think this is pretty much it.
Another factor was we wanted to create an alarm clock that could be used without being touched again once it was placed. I want you to understand that Nintendo said at one point in a meeting, we want to have an alarm clock you don't touch anymore.
So there's like, you didn't come back. Is it going to be like Stonehenge or something?
Yeah, exactly. Like he was asked, why does it have a plug? And they was like, well, it could only run for 2 weeks on a battery if you didn't recharge it. Okay. Continuing. Yep. We wanted to have an alarm clock you don't need to touch. And I'm like, my friend, I need you to listen to yourself, because you're saying things that I understand where they come from. I get the place you're coming from, but you're saying them in a way that makes me think you are deranged, and I appreciate this. But if you're going to be deranged, go full deranged. Greg's Baby Park answer is excellent and would have been an obvious inclusion, because the Baby Park theme...
it might be when they do the DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Maybe that's how it'll work. We don't know. It isn't yet.
I hope so, but also I just don't have faith that they're gonna commit to the absolute bombasticness that is Baby Park.
The other thing I was thinking was just thinking about sort of like sound effects from Nintendo games getting abused. It immediately made me think of Triforce Heroes, because of course you didn't have chat. So the way you communicated was with those like those emotes or whatever down the bottom, and just how much people like abuse those. Like it's just, oh well, we've solved the puzzle or whatever. Just absolutely hammering the fucking Toon Link with the pom poms one, and that kind of made this like very odd kind of musical sound of like. So I'm thinking maybe that could. If you just wave your hand around, it starts making that noise, and then you'll be all right. I'll get up. I don't want to go back to that place.
Oh, see, I want to go back. Take me back. I want back to this place.
Take me back to Triforce. I like it more than most, but I don't think you'll get that many people. Take me back to playing it online when the connection could be terrible, the people could be of dubious cooperation, and or you could play it alone and be truly miserable.
The connection can be terrible. The people will be terrible. And your experience will commensurately be terrible. Congratulations.
It wasn't all bad, but there's definitely there's a reason why all these years later, and it is quite a lot now, right? Like, it was like 2016, 15, something like that. I still just think of that game. I think of
I mean, there's definitely, like, it's not just what music do you want. That's obviously a part of it. The question is what sounds would you want coming from your
the sound effects is a big thing. Like I said, I mean, the Pikmin stuff. I mean, that plucking noise. I'm worried about that. I mean,
what would you want coming from your sound clock Alarmo when it misinterprets?
Sound clock, that's its proper name. Alarmo's more of a nickname, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's
sound clock is my birth name. Alarmo is what my friends call me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because of that one time.
There's the episode title. Oh, I think the idea of like what sound effects would really work, and we're back to Xenoblade. Because there's one sound effect that could play really well, often in sequence when you start moving, and we know this because we experienced it. Even if the cowards stole it from us, we need more Ardanian soldiers screaming, "See here," when it's time. Or just get the voice actor back in the booth and have him record the phrase "wake up."
Oh.
Just like variations of that, but in the same kind of like manic tenor. And so every time I move, they just start layering on top of each other. Just get my ass out of bed. Make me think I'm being attacked by 500 Scottish clones.
Yeah, a Scottish drill sergeant has entered your room. Is it the Scottish equivalent of Ali Ermy or whatever his name is from the Full Metal Jacket? The first half of it is just in there with you, getting your ass out of bed.
It's that lovely opening theme. It's kind of like it's their version of the Xenoblade 1 theme where the Monado is just stuck in the ground and you see it go from day to night. It's that, but it's just the more Ardanians screaming at you, "See here," and get out.
Well, you get that for like a minute, and if you don't get your ass out of bed before that, well, then the Imperium of More Ardane is dispatched to.
What if it's just? It just starts playing an audio battle. It's just a fight of Rex and Co. against 1,000 more Ardanians. So you just get to hear Rex say at the end, "What a bunch of jokers!" When it's all over.
To be fair, just like a collected Xenoblade word salad, wouldn't it? All of them just cobbled together. All your sort of lands want something a bit meatier and all that stuff. Yeah. It all just comes together.
It's just one long, it starts out with it's just them versus one more Ardanian, but he does his stupid summon thing where he calls in more. There is a audio clip I have of me where I kited about 50 more Ardanian soldiers into a single fight. And the audio starts to break on the Switch. It becomes unable to render all of their horse shit. That's what I want. I want this sort of progressive ramp up where there's more and more people involved in the fight and they're unleashing more and more like super moves because they've got them charged up. By the end, I'll be awake because there's like 75 Scottish men screaming to get up. I've got a child in a diving suit calling on the various, I'm going to say, fantasy women he carries around with him to launch big, strong fire attacks. And I've got Zeke screaming, what is this, Overlord Thunderbeam at people? It'll be great. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to wake up every morning in a panic attack because of this fucking thing. And that's going to get me started because I don't drink coffee. Problem fucking solved. Nintendo, get on it. I know you've released another Xenoblade since then, but that game sounds significantly less frantic in battle. It just doesn't have it for me. It just doesn't do it. Doesn't.
Although, I mean, what could, if you think about the paradigm that gave us this? I mean, what could they do with a coffee machine?
Fuck.
I would actually buy a Nintendo coffee machine.
We wanted to make a coffee machine that has no buttons.
John, owner of the Xbox, not actually a fridge. I don't know whether I believe you when you say that.
Well, that's the thing. See, I I mean, I have a Keurig.
It doesn't
right
make
now.
your drinks cold, but it keeps them cold for a while.
Well, I have a Keurig, right? So and I don't really have any particular attachment to that thing. It was cheap and it does the trick. But if there was a good Nintendo replacement for that, I would not mind that. I gotta say. I'm not sitting here with I don't have one of those fancy coffee machines that like does like, mocha latte,
like French,
and like cappuccino, and like
French roast.
and like 4 different kinds of coffee, and you have to pour milk into it and all that kind of stuff. No, mine is just like, it's straight, dude. It just basically spits out hot water.
Yeah.
In a form factor that lets you make coffee in a K-cup.
But we need to make it fun. That's we need to have sound effects.
Yeah.
What if it spit out hot water while making the sound that Mario makes with Flood?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It could be a whole range, isn't it? Because there's Nintendo Sound Clock. What if Nintendo Sound Coffee Maker? Nintendo Sound Massage Chair. I mean, there's so much.
Yeah. All right. So we're going back to quality of life. I'm going to go back to my quality of life article because fuck it. This is the entire first segment now. I don't even care.
Well, I mean, look, it's a bit of what might call a kind of delayed, belated payoff. But I mean, you did write that article and say a lot of considerable effort went into it. You may as well spike the football now, I guess.
Yeah, James plays the long game.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they probably read this article as they were working on Alarmo, possibly daily.
Hopefully, it's the only one of yours that they read. To be perfectly
which pretty
honest.
much means that we've got I don't know. Let's start. You're going to sort of apply a bit of rough proportionality, or sort of maybe 10 years from now we'll actually get Horror Show Pony on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
They're going to buy Mount Rushmore with all the money that they've made.
Once they've got the fucking Alarmo scratch rolling in, they can buy it easily. I don't know what your problem is.
Oh, welcome to Alarmo. We've bought... I'll just rename it Mount Alarmo. That's it. We're done. We finished.
Mount Alarmo. Wow.
Small specialized devices that utilize an account. Imagine a Pokemon Pikachu that offered some gameplay and syncs data with additional functionality to family devices. I like that I mentioned Miiverse as if that was still going to exist.
Did you mention anything approaching an alarm clock?
I'm not sure. I haven't read this thing in a while.
I'm just saying if this is more of our speaking things into reality phenomenon at work.
So Iwata talked about trying to synergize hardware and software, which is just a bunch of management fucking speak. We knew they were working on a sleep sensor a while ago. That actually, they may have said it themselves.
I remember the sleep sensor stuff, but that's an alarm clock that senses you moving out of bed and plays coin sounds is quite a far.
The thing is,
quite a far reach.
The thing is, the actual particular sensor request is some kind of laser. Is this correct?
It's Oh shoot! Hold on.
What does it actually sense with? Because we say it's not a camera.
Nintendo planned to release their quality of life platform in early 2015. I just can't. I just can't deal with this horse shit. They actually do mention the technology. I'm looking for it right now. Let's see. Learn more at Nintendo support. No, I want to read about the Alarmo. I want to read about the Alarmo. Let me read about the Alarmo, Nintendo. I know I'm making fun of you every time I do it, but an alarm clock that's out of the ordinary. It's so good. Maybe it is a laser? Let's see. How does the motion sensor work? No, it's a radio wave sensor. It's basically echolocation.
Okay.
So
that's somewhat reassuring. It's just when I heard that, this is where my brain works. I was thinking, in Alien, when they find the ship and above the eggs, there's this laser barrier above them all that John Hurt kind of puts his hand through, and it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't trigger an alarm. It doesn't, kind of like hurt anyone. It's not like a force field. It's just like this barrier across the top. And I'm just thinking, what if the space jockey had like Alarmo tech so that when all those facehugger eggs woke up, like it'd start playing Contra music or something?
Oh, God.
You don't know. That might have been it. The mysteries. This is why, people were so disappointed with Prometheus, because it didn't actually reveal that.
It didn't have Alarmo in it. Yeah, I like the idea that Nintendo wants to put a sonar emitter next to your bed to tell you how you sleep at night. That's where we're at. We're back at, like, we've talked about in the past that, like, oh, there's weird Nintendo and there's conservative Nintendo and there's like, fuck, everything's on fire. I don't know, mobile games Nintendo.
Well, this is also sort of see what spare parts we have in the back room and make us a product Nintendo.
A little bit. Or what thing we designed up like a decade ago, and they're like, well, we should probably do something with that, I guess. Like, it is fascinating. Fucking fascinating. This is an alarm clock that's effectively been in development for 4+ years. I can't fathom there is any company on Earth who has released an alarm clock in the last decade where the R&D time prior to its release approaches 4 years. This is again, I reiterate, this is deviancy. And I don't mean that in the like sexual deviancy kind of way, because Nintendo makes it quite clear they're not interested in that.
Yeah,
quote, this sensor can detect movement of a person in bed even when they're covered with the comforter, but doesn't need to use images or video.
They might as well have just said, look, we're not into that kind of stuff, okay? This is just an alarm clock.
We don't want to see you in a, quote, private space, such as a bedroom. It's why we're using sonar, so we don't have to see it. We don't want to see it. We don't want Mario to make coin noises when you're having sex. We understand it might happen, but we don't want to be involved if it does. If that happens, that's between you, your partner, and Alarmo. It's got nothing to do with us. We're not there for that, nor can we see it. We will have the statistical data, though, to indicate that it may have been happening. None of us are happy about it. Because it's got to be like tied to your Nintendo account, because like you'll be able to see how you've been sleeping. But the goddamn thing is, we don't want you to touch it. So I guess they're gonna put it in the app. Is there an app? Who knows? People who already own it probably know, but I don't, because I don't have it yet.
Yeah.
I say yet because I'm a realist. There is going to be a day when I go, John, I'm going to talk about Alarmo on the show, and you're just going to be like, oh boy, here we go. And then I'm going to announce it, and Guillaume's going to groan.
Well, it's going to be like next week, probably. I mean, when does Alarmo ship?
I don't know, because people, like as Greg noted, at the scene of the Scarfo crime, the Nintendo warm neck Scarfo, they don't have the ability, or people can just go buy it right now. So it might just ship as they process orders.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I haven't actually completed the order yet because I'm toying with the thought that I have been told explicitly by my partner, do not buy this.
Be toying with the thought of being sensible, but I probably won't be.
I've been on 700 episodes of Radio Free Nintendo. That ship sailed a long time ago. It's do not put this in your bedroom. It should not be there. And it's like, okay, but if I put this in my bedroom, I can talk about it on my podcast. And obviously that's what we both want, right? Met with the obvious and completely rational response of no, we both do not want that.
Yeah, so
do not drag me into this.
So it says, I think it's not going to ship until early 2025. It says it'll be available at retail starting in early 2025.
Well, that'll be, but
Nintendo
that's just
Switch
when it's at stores.
But Nintendo Switch Online members in the US and Canada can purchase it early via the My Nintendo store right now. And there's an asterisk on that. The asterisk then leads to the fine print, which says early access available until early 2025 at the Nintendo New York store and online in the US and Canada. Nintendo account and paid Nintendo Switch Online membership required for online purchase during early access period. So it sounds like they're pretty much taking pre-orders now. They're allowing online users to register pre-orders and then shipping it in early 2025.
I
gotta think they'll be shipping faster than that for the people who have the Nintendo account. Like they will. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I would have thought it's just they've got to give it a few months before they kind of start shipping it to the general public. But otherwise, I would have thought you get it quicker. But I guess we'll see. Yeah, I don't know yet.
I want to beta test Waking Up.
Yeah,
that's what Nintendo's asking
kind of what's
me.
going on.
I do want to wrap my references to the Ask a Developer with what is the most insane phrase in this entire article of absolutely insane and unhinged behavior. With the interviewer asks the two leads, knowing the characters are there near you as you wake up each morning, sounds like it will enhance the feeling of waking up in the game world even more. What? To close this interview, can we hear thoughts from both of you on how you'd like customers to use Alarmo? It's a fucking alarm clock. Okay, nameless interviewer. A comma. First and foremost. I'm going to really struggle to get this sentence out without laughing. I hope this product will establish a new convention for waking up.
It's a bold claim. I mean, humans have been doing it for millions of years. Hundreds of thousands of years, maybe.
Your ancestors woke up like fucking failures.
I'm not an
with
anthropologist,
Alarmo.
but it's been millions of years since humans have been waking up.
With Alarmo, you're going to wake up like a champion.
No, it's something that needs. It's the point. Is we don't want to admit it because we're too proud to, but it's needed reinvented for a while, hasn't it? And then someone has had the boldness as well as the ingenuity.
It's now a blue. It's now a blue ocean, Greg.
Yeah,
It's a blue sleepy ocean.
Yep.
Kick your great grandfather in his dick, proverbially. With Alarmo, he woke up like a chode. You wake up like a champ. Like just fuck it. Let's just go all the way in with absolutely insane behavior. But don't worry, Tamori-san, who was then prompted to give his final thoughts, says, when you first start using it, I'm sure many of you will choose alarm sounds based on your favorite game. But once you get used to it, I encourage you to set it to random and enjoy waking up with a fresh experience every day.
Yeah, that's just what I want. To be woken up randomly by something random. Great. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I like
the rest
that
of the world. The rest of the world is just too predictable right now.
I
need this to spice things up.
Tetsuya Akama's like, fuck waking up. We're gonna wake up new style.
We're gonna emit a sleeping gas so that she'll sleep even longer.
Yes, Tamori's like, all right, hold on. You gone a little too far. Gone a little too far, buddy. I want people to wake up with random experiences. Trust me on this one. You'll love it. It's like, all right, my partner, too far. No, too much. Me, wake up to unpredictable noises.
That's exactly it.
Oh my god, I had a curtain rod fall down when I was asleep the other day, and I think I couldn't go back to sleep for like 3 hours because it made that spring sound when it hit the ground.
Well, now you can pay $100 for that.
I might get that too because there is a spring sound in Odyssey. Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm going to regret this so bad. All right, RFN listeners, in about 2 years, I need you to send an email that's that one we had a couple weeks ago about what's your biggest gaming purchase regrets.
Yeah, I did forget to mention one for that, which is the thing is it's kind of easy to forget because it was not at all very much money, and yet it still is arguably an act of wanton profligacy. Which was, we've made fun of them on the air, but I don't know whether I've ever actually mentioned the fact that I do own one of those Game Gear micros. There was a time where I was buying stuff off Amazon Japan, and they've been discounted to like 2,000 some odd yen. So after the shipping and tax, probably was somewhere in the region of 25 quid. So it was a lot cheaper than I think it had been at one point, because it was probably more like 5,000-6,000 yen or something. But still,
Oh yeah,
it's like it is such an absurdity. It's such a novelty thing of just like the screen is tiny, the buttons, despite being disproportionately large to be usable at all, are still very tiny. So yeah, I do own one of those. It is undoubtedly just complete profligacy. You can't defend it, even if it was quote unquote a bargain. It was still just a complete use of silly money. But on the plus side, the one I got has the M2 port of Gunstar Heroes to the Game Gear. It has that for as one of the 4 games. And I mean, can you say you've actually beaten Seven Force if you haven't beaten it on the size of a postage stamp screen? Yes, is the answer. But I've done that as well. So there you go.
You should have gotten the big window.
Yeah,
the mini big window.
What's the point of that? It's just like, don't make it more normal. That's the point. It's stupid.
Well, no, because it's gonna distort it terribly. So
also, yeah, it's true. I'm overestimating how actually effective the whatever fraction scale of the big window concept actually is. So I feel like it's in that sort of. It's in that sort of ballpark, isn't it? But at the moment, it's $100, so it's like, nah, that's no chance.
Like, part of me is like, all right, $100 is not an insignificant amount of money. I need to keep that in mind. But another part of me is like, we spent almost that on dinner a couple nights. Those are really nice dinners, but they're not Mario screaming at me to get out of bed.
It's not as durable as Alarmo, is it?
Besides, the thing is, if you own Alarmo, you can call yourself an alarmist. Think about it. That's what this group of people is going to call themselves.
Is this like there was another thing that we're like worldwide. AG made a comment like, now that Nintendo's made an alarm clock, what household items will Nintendo make, and how will they Nintendoize it? Smart mops, automatic toasters, tumble dryers. Y'all are all just like thinking too like, well, Nintendo obviously is going to go after other home appliances. Fuck that. So keep in mind, Nintendo went and made a product that's been effectively obviated by your smartphone. Obviously, they're going to do that again, because Nintendo, as we have heard, is in a marketplace that we were told had also been I would say made obsolete by the presence of smartphones and persevered in handheld gaming. That's why they made the Alarmo. They're challenging the smartphone on other territory that it is claimed to have monopolized beyond its core feature of being a phone. So they're obviously going to target GPS. They are going to see the return of the standalone GPS unit that you plug into your cigarette lighter. Yes, kids, that's for lighting cigarettes. I understand that no one uses it for that anymore because, one, why lighting a cigarette as you're driving with a device that fundamentally is cumbersome, probably not a good idea. And two, the generalized reduction in smoking, unless you live in Japan, at which point I assume people still smoke like a chimney. But they're going to release a standalone GPS unit that they Nintendoize. What does that mean? That means at every turn, you're not going to get just a robotic voice saying, at the third left, turn left. You're going to get Mario telling you woohoo and yaha every time you get to a turn. You're going to need to learn what the new Mario... First off, you need to get past the new Mario voice actor. I know he doesn't sound quite right in Odyssey. It is what it is. Giving you directions. Can you imagine getting directions from Luigi? Where he's just scared if you drive the car too fast because he's a scaredy cat? I mean, there's so many options here. Imagine getting your directions from Tora. It's your Xenoblade GPS experience. I mean, the opportunities are limited. No, I didn't mean to say limitless. They're highly limited, like an alarm clock.
They are.
But they're also incredibly inconvenient. And so in that, I think it's right up Nintendo's alley. Also, if we can get a round screen this time instead of a square screen in a round bezel, Really appreciate it. Actual round LCDs, Nintendo. Do it.
But how long do you think it'll take before somebody uses AI to generate a version of the protracted exorcism sequence in The Exorcist, but where Alarmo is in the room and making a bunch of stupid noises when she starts floating off the bed?
I hope it's happening as we speak.
Which game should it probably... I don't know, Luigi's Mansion or something?
Luigi's Mansion would be very good. It's not currently supported, but it could come later.
Yeah, okay. I'm just kind of surprised it's not, considering the commercial juggernaut that it is these days, but more so than Pikmin. I mean, you know... That's...
God, can you imagine Wii Fit Trainer telling you to get up? Oh, I'd want to die. I'd want to die. It's there are options that are bad. There are options that are worse. There are options that are Yoshis making their noises at you.
They need to. I tell you, it should be Punch Out, shouldn't it? Remember, you know, you've got to imagine you're pressing, you know, select or whatever.
But you get to hear all the voice lines from Punch Out on Wii when they trying to get you up.
Yeah. Doc Lewis just imploring you to get up.
Imagine you turn and it's Aaron Ryan's fucking face on top of your clock telling you to get up.
Yeah, the bear hugger salmon arm, over and over again. They're going to bring it back any day now. I mean, no problems. No.
I mean, well, based on this, we're now about 8.5 years away from Punch Out Warriors. Based on my current success rate.
True.
Yeah. So I mean, we're getting there. We're down the clock. Other features that phones have made. I mean, Nintendo digital camera is coming. What's it going to do? So when you take pictures, it's going to put random Nintendo characters into them.
Maybe they don't even need to do it. They just bring Game Boy camera back. Just don't even change it at all.
Nintendo Light camera. I can't even think of what the nickname for it would be. Or Nintendo Light Capture or Camro.
Yeah, it can't really be like Cammy.
No. I
would say Camaro, but that's already been taken by a car. So
yeah. All the shutter noises because I mean the shutter noises on digital cameras aren't real. Replace them with like Mario sounds or Luigi making noises or WarioWare sound effects coming from your digital camera is definitely going to get you arrested by the police, deservedly. But you know, if it's making noises as you take a picture with people in it, you're going to jail. You just are. You may not have done anything wrong, but you made Wario noises out of your camera as you took pictures of people.
Like a sort of one of those like wildlife sanctuaries or whatever, and someone next to you is trying to get, you know, a really difficult photo of some animal that's like, you know, rested very carefully, and then you thoughtlessly take a picture that then initiates. It's just like, oh, well, ruin that shot.
All the birds, all the birds scatter from the trees like a gun just went off. It just makes duck hunt sounds. So as you take pictures on the camera, you're definitely going to jail. But afterwards, when the police are done playing with your camera and laughing about it, they might let you out. That'll be good. Yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo isn't trying to do quality of life. I think they're trying to strike back at the cell phone. This is they won that, you know, they defended the front that was their own. They had their Kursk moment, and now they're on the offensive. I knew he was
going there. I knew that's where the parallel was going. It's just
the Red Army is on the march now. There's no stopping it. Cell phones are done. Nintendo is gonna like the final act will be Nintendo releasing the Nintendo phone. The Nintendo voice transmitter phono.
As soon as they have to start, you know, retaking their own territory, that's it. Then it all crumbles. They can't fight on two fronts at the same time.
That's right. The Nintendo voice transmitter phono is coming. It's gonna be a dumb cell phone with no smart features, except every so often a Nintendo character will insert themselves into the conversation you're having with your loved one.
I'm listening to you.
It's
for a minute there, I thought Mario had replaced Kelsey Grammer as Fraser Crane there.
I mean, look, who do you think the new Mario voice actor is? Why do you think they were keeping it so quiet?
It's going to be awesome, to be fair. If the new 3D Mario just sounds mostly the same and all that, and then when you fall into a pit or if he just says, "Bind Lucifer's beard," it'd be awesome.
We didn't even talk about the other weird ass announcement that AG also mentions, where they're talking about this beta test for a thing. We won't tell you what it is, but you have to be a member of the expansion.
I've seen something, the notion is that people who have signed up won't be able to say either. It's confidential.
That's going to hold.
Exactly. I mean, come on. That's absurd. There's no way. Absolutely not.
No.
How can they even think that's remotely proximate to what will happen? Assuming this is any significant number of people, isn't 5 people.
Right.
That's mad.
I mean, just hey, if you're in the expansion pack and get into the thing, tell me. I'm not. So Nintendo won't be able to trace it back to you, even if you're scared of their lawyers. Just tell me. I don't give a shit. People are like, why did they limit it to expansion pack? Because they wanted the most enthusiast audience they have, because they're the ones most likely to use it. But they didn't want to open it up to 1 billion people, because there's going to be a lot of people who download it from their servers, which is going to take bandwidth, and then not give them any meaningful fucking data. So go after
it's just a useful kind of thing they can do as a proxy, for, like you said, how enthusiastic, the kind of player, and as a scale limiter at the same time. Right. It's just nice and easy.
And it's not like they're trying to sell expansion pack off it, because you had to be a member of expansion pack before they announced it.
Yeah, and it lasted for all of 5 seconds by the sound of it, essentially.
Yeah, so essentially they were just. They wanted a limited audience. They wanted it to be an audience they knew would use whatever this thing is, because they haven't said yet. And they wanted it to be like, hey, we've picked this population, but don't use this as a reason to get the service, because it won't do you any good anyway. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it gives you any kind of hint as to what it would be. I doubt it's about Switch's successor explicitly. It's probably a feature that the Switch's successor would support, but you don't read too much into this.
Yeah, I mean, you might think it might be just a feature, for Switch Online, Switch Online multiplayer or something that they want to test out at some sort of scale, but a manageable scale.
Yeah, that's all. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. These things happen. We'll see what it is in pretty much as soon as it goes live. People will tell us what it was. But yeah, just a weird week for Nintendo announcements overall. I'm thrilled. Just absolutely overjoyed that Nintendo is being weird again. And yeah, I mean, after I'm gonna talk about Zelda after the break, which felt like they were being weird, but I'm going to be honest, this was a far weirder Nintendo than anything in that game. So I don't know. I'm going to ask y'all for your final thoughts and hope you give me something as absolutely asinine as we hope to create a new sleep paradigm. What do you got for me?
I mean, I don't really know. This came out of complete left field. I don't know. All I can say is that I hope Alarmo does not harmo.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The 5 Alarmo fire, we think, is that how severe we consider this to be? I guess what you got to like about this is because of how sudden it was, as John sort of mentioned and all that. It just sort of spices up everything. From now, you never know now.
Yeah, that's right.
You might wake up one day and they might announce the fucking coffee maker. They might announce the digital camera. You don't know.
Yep.
So it's made everything that tiny little bit more interesting.
I want to know what things have been like. If I could find out one thing, and I wouldn't, I promise not to share it. I'm just gonna hear it and take it to my grave with me. What ideas didn't get through the mesh screen that obviously has a hole in it that let Nintendo release a $100 Wi-Fi enabled clock that knows when you move in bed? What was the thing that Nintendo executives were like, no, stop that. We're not. That's silly. That is silly behavior. But they were like, this, thumbs up, because I bet the shit there is, it's either really boring and you're like, oh, that would have been normal. Why did you stop that? Or they're completely and utterly deranged in ways that I cannot describe. And I'm really pulling for the second. That's my deep, dark hope, is that the second is like, yeah, they saw Wappy Dog and they're like, fuck that shit. We can do better than that. Or they made a Switch that has no buttons. Like, you control it with your mind. Obviously. Like, what crazy prototype never made it out the door? That's what I need to know. And is it possible that one of those prototypes is embedded inside the head of a horror show pony? Who can tell? I can. It is. But yeah, I think we're going to take a break here because the Alarmo, we've entered the Alarmo impact winter at this point. So we got about 1,000 years of cold that's going to come from this impact. The iridium rains down on us.
Yeah. Alarmos. That's its true form. It came from another planet. And
that was the working title. Disrupted an episode of RFN. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of new business. So go ahead and stay tuned. We return with new business. And since I've been gone for a bit and I'm going to talk about Zelda Echo of Wisdom, I figure I'll just do it. I have listened to the conversation about this game that's already happened on the show. So I'm going to be cognizant of that and not take up a ton of time on it. I have cleared the game. In fact, I cleared the game literally right before we recorded. As I was talking to Greg and John before recording, I was looking up my stats on how I did. I missed 7 echoes total, 2 of which were the ones that Greg... Well, two of them were in the place that Greg mentioned earlier last week about like a monster camp that's just kind of out of the way. So I'm down to 5. One of them, I know roughly where it is. One of them, I kind of have an idea, and then the rest, I haven't really dug into it. So I'm going to not spend a bunch of time talking about the game itself because Greg actually said most of the things there that I want to talk about mechanically. I'm going to instead kind of give it my general opinion on it. I think it's good. I played a lot of it. As I mentioned, I had my significant other here for 2 weeks, and it came out while she was here. And so she kind of just didn't want to play it, but she wanted to watch someone play it just to get a vibe for it. So she watched me play, I would say about the game has a front half and back half. If you haven't played it, if that makes sense, kind of Ocarina of Time style, where there's a first set of dungeons and a second set of dungeons, although a little bit more balanced than that one. She saw through the first half, and I think she saw the first dungeon of the second half. And then I finished it off after she left. I would say that overall, I liked the game, but I didn't love it. And I think part of it, we were talking about this as I was playing it, is that a lot of the combat felt kind of perfunctory. We have to have combat in this game. So how are we going to solve it? We're going to have Zelda summon enemies, or we're going to turn into Link for brief windows of time. And we touched on it on the show last week, although I wasn't here. That some enemies just don't attack when you summon them, or they'll attack one time, and then they're just gone. They don't attack a second time. For a little while, they kind of just stand around and don't do anything, and then eventually they might do something. but like it makes fighting enemies really annoying sometimes because you have enough enemies on the field to do something, and then nothing happens. Like they just kind of stand around and let themselves get killed by the real enemies. So that was kind of annoying. And some of the boss fights, to Greg's point, they do have some teeth, but sometimes the teeth is just really, there's periods in all the boss fights, or pretty much all the boss fights, where you solve the puzzle of them, and then they go into an extended period of time where they're effectively idle for you to damage them. This happens all the way up to the last boss. And they seem to expect you to turn into Link for that section and just hammer away at them. But the way in which you recharge your magic meter in order to use, we'll call it Link time, is the little blue energy that's sort of floating around and gets pulled into Zelda. But you're dependent on enemies spawning that in order to use it.
Yeah, so outside of bosses, it's those rift enemies, the sort of black jelly enemies that produce that. Inside of bosses, they tend to just have not ones like that, but like nuisance enemies, like that you farm for it a lot of the time, don't they? So yeah, that's actually how that works. I remember one in the first episode that John and I discussed this game. I was wondering, like, okay, what's the system for that? Like, is it like if I kill enemies with Zelda, not using the Link form, is it going to give me energy to power the Link form? But no, it's more specific than that. It's those black jelly enemies outside of the bosses, and then specific things inside the boss.
Yeah. And if I had some instances with bosses where they just didn't. Like, they just didn't spawn the stuff that I needed to reset. And so I couldn't actually kill them effectively. Like, I could spawn enemies to hurt them, but it wasn't super useful because because of the whole thing where they only attack like one time, or their damage position is somewhere where the enemy can't get to, where the unit you spawn can't really do the damage you need to do. And that made some bosses feel really frustrating. And that is where the smoothies can come in, because you can make smoothies to regenerate the energy. You can expand that energy bar, and there are accessories you can get to cause more of them to drop or to make the burn down slower. But it is kind of a weird oversight, because generally speaking, when Nintendo puts a Zelda boss in where they expect you to use a resource that is expendable, they're very generous with refilling you in the combat room. So there's the boss in what is effectively the Zora Temple. He's aquatic, semi-aquatic, and it's fought in that that 2D perspective where Link moves up and down and left and right, which is unique. I think it's the only boss fought that way.
Yeah, I guess like the oracles, and you kind of had bosses like that as well. So like it's something that's happened before, but that's probably the only one in this game, right?
Right. And yeah, that fight sucked because they just wouldn't give me energy anymore. Like, for whatever reason, like I had a run that failed because I got stuck in like a 5-minute cycle where it just didn't give me any. All.
One thing I'll say about the bosses at a bit of a different perspective is when I did the challenges where it's just the boss rushes, and like I think in those you can't, like, the only way you can refill that Link sort of meter is by smoothies. Like, I don't think it gives you any actual, like, those enemies to farm in that way. I mean, the enemies will still be there. They just won't drop, the bits of blue energy or whatever. So then, you kind of had to think about fighting them a little bit of a different way, right? So, okay, so when I do the thing that leaves them defenseless so that we can just get the damage in, I've really got to think about what enemy, is going to, or anything is going to be the right thing to spawn to get a decent amount of damage done in a short period of time. And of course, with it being this challenge thing, you're on the clock as well. It's not just like do you want to be efficient so you're more likely to live. You've literally got to actually get in under a certain time. And so you did have to kind of think about it differently there. But the caveat with that is I did those pretty much when I'd got every echo in the game. I had every tool at my disposal, including some things that could do very serious damage in a quick period of time. That is a decent substitute for, the turning into Link and, just hammering away with the sword. Earlier in the game, when you might be confronted some of these bosses, you're probably not going to have something that will substitute for it that effectively. So it is still, right. So I think I had some somewhat similar experiences to you where it's just like, it kind of seemed, something of an issue. Maybe, I could have managed it better and made it less of an issue and thought more about, what can I do with Zelda and the enemies to kind of help me here a bit more. And I kind of explored that a bit better once I got to that boss rush mode, but it's still not quite the same because, like I said, that's when I've got all the toys to play with, basically. And I think it's still, I would imagine quite a number of players might run into something similar to what you've described there, which, on the one hand, again, I'm glad the bosses aren't just trivial. I'm glad that there's enough resistance there that something like this could be an issue, but it still kind of suggests maybe you could have ironed it out a bit better.
Yeah. I had a bad run with that dungeon the first time, and then ultimately was fine. With that challenge the first time, and then I got stuck on the last boss. I think it's the first 3 in that challenge, and I got stuck with the last boss because I didn't realize they weren't going to give me more juice, and I blew it all on the first boss. So it was like, uh-oh, that's bad. Now, once I fully upgraded the bar, that helped a lot. Once I fully upgraded the sword, that helped a lot because it meant I didn't need to hit them as many times. It meant I could hop in and out of the mode.
Exactly.
And once I started working on the bow, that helped. I wish I hadn't dropped a single cent into the bombs.
Yeah, I mean, what is the utility of a charge? I mean, I know I still haven't fully upgraded the bombs. I did the one upgrade where you could get a bomb chew, which is a cute reference to Ocarina of Time and the bomb chew, the bowling and all that. But in terms of function, I'm a bit of a loss.
Yeah, it's not helpful. So ultimately, if I hadn't invested in the bomb, I would have been able to fully upgrade the bow, which would have been useful for the final boss. But there's some stuff around. We want Zelda to be different, which I think is the right call. But also we want this to feel like a Zelda game, which I think maybe wasn't the right call, but might have been driven in part by the fact they're in the engine of an existing Zelda game.
Oh, I'm sure. It's very there's a lot of aspects that are quite sort of play the hits kind of things.
Oh yeah,
some direct reprises of like a boss from a previous Zelda game, or just all the kind of the races and scenarios like from a bunch of different kind of like post Ocarina games and things. Like it almost felt a little bit, and just the fact that you've got these more orthodox dungeons and stuff, like for the things that it's doing differently, and some of the trappings that it has from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and trying to maybe get people who came into the series from those games to also like cross over into a top-down game. It also feels like it's trying to say maybe to the people who have been Zelda fans for a long time and maybe miss some of the things that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have either de-emphasized or kind of sidestepped, and say, oh look, they're back. Like it's the the kind of cuddly warm memories of Zelda from an earlier time before those games existed. It's trying to kind of straddle that line.
Yeah, and there are definitely like shout out references for that too. Like if you move the Kuko gravestone, like there's a little gift down here for you because you played Link's Awakening. Congratulations. But yeah, there's some stuff where it just doesn't feel like it fully syncs with what they were looking to do. And I get that that part of that is probably that they wanted this game to feel still approachable to fans of the series, that they were working within the confines of an existing engine. But yeah, there's some stuff that didn't feel right. And I say that having enjoyed the game quite a bit. There's a lot more secrets in the game than I expected there would be. There's a lot of weird stuff in this game that you mentioned. It feels very Link's Awakening, or at least Game Boy Zelda like, because the Oracle games are also pretty weird.
Yeah, they almost feel off-brand at times.
Yeah, but like in a good way.
Yeah,
in like the Game Boy Mario Land games feel off-brand.
Yeah.
It's the kind of off-brand that I like, because it's the like, kind of off.
It's like you can tell you can tell it was given to different people, and they said, "Hey, we have our own idea for how this is supposed to be. Is that cool with everybody? Okay, all right, cool. Let's do it."
Is that cool? Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot to ask you if that was cool. We already released the game.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's some goofy stuff in this game that I actually really liked. I do think that there are. Greg mentioned some of the stuff that I had also found, like bypassing whole sections of the Hebra climb. I just tried it. I'm like, can I bypass the Hebra climb? I wonder. And sure enough, yeah, you can skirt past a lot of parts of this game. There's a lot of stuff you can do just because you have the right pieces, and it is extremely trying to channel Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And what I found is that I explored the world a lot like I explored those games. So, I talked about it with Breath of the Wild. I mostly explored the game through the air. And if I wasn't through the air, I was running along mountain ridge lines, because that gave me the best view to spot things that I was interested in, and then I could launch myself into the air to get closer. But in this game, that doesn't work as well, because while Breath of the Wild does a pretty good job, Breath of the Wild doesn't make an effort to tell you where you've been. It does it through the shrines. Like, look at all these shrines. Hey, there's a gap here where you haven't found any shrines. That means there's probably shrines. Or you probably haven't explored this area. Go back and look. This game does it just by, once you touch an area, it shades it in on the map. But it shades in huge chunks of area that you may not have actually even opened. Like, you may have just kind of, in one case, I was walking on top of the trees in the area adjacent, and it marked a huge, I would say, maybe 10th of the map as I've now explored it, even though I hadn't. Or it triggered a story sequence because it thought I was coming up the road to an area that was where the next story sequence was. But I was nowhere near that. So, like, when the camera jumped over there and showed me it, I had no context for where that was, because by the time I got back, like, I was nowhere near that spot. I was on top of a tree super far away. So, there's some decisions that might have been a little bit more focused on providing there's a lot of stuff where they were clearly trying to provide the Breath of the Wild feeling in a game that is based on a port of a Game Boy game. But it might have been a little bit better if they had either gone further to make that feel the same way, or had maybe backed off it a little bit. But, if the map had been less like, yeah, you've seen this area, or if the game had been a little bit more restrictive on where you can go so that you can't just kind of walk along the edge of some stuff. I do think the game would be better off if it was more grid-based, because it's not really grid-based. Zelda a lot of times puts things catty-corner to herself because she's slightly out of alignment, and therefore she doesn't feel like she could drop it in on the spot directly in front of her. That can break some puzzles, especially when you're trying to use items, and the thing you're planning only has, like, doesn't really have any extra space. Like, you've got 9 pieces and you plan to use them all. And I know these all sound like complaints. They're just things that I noted. I do think despite all that, it did do a pretty good job of feeling Breath of the Wild like in a lot of ways. And I think that's impressive considering it's a 2D game with non-standard combat. But in a lot of ways, so does Breath of the Wild. And it's not 2D. But it has a very non-standard approach to combat for a Zelda game. So I can kind of see how they got there. It just feels like there's some things where like we want to differentiate it, and it feels like some of those differentiations didn't work right. I don't like the tries. They're kind of cute, but I don't know. I don't care for them. They feel like they were designed to be in a gotcha machine. And when you
tell you what, it remind me a bit of the night Pikmin in Pikmin 4.
A little bit.
And those warp points look a lot like the sort of hives or whatever that the night Pikmin emerge from. Like that really struck me, considering this is Grezzo developing it, under the supervision of Nintendo. It just strikes me as being a sort of like, God, you'd swear it was the same artist or something. It was a little bit surprising how close those seemed to be.
Yeah, and I think that there is a like when you clear I can't remember, a void area, a rift. There's the word I want.
Yes, rift.
You get a whole bunch of the tries surrounding you, and I realized they all had different faces, and that was when I turned to her and I said, "These are going to be in a gashapon machine in Japan in the next month." Like, it just feels like they're designed to be phone charms you get at random. I don't know. There's something about them that just feels a little unsettling in a way that I don't think was intended. Y'all talked about the stamp guy and noted that he was very much not Tingle. We had reached a similar conclusion, except that he was designed to be a wholesome Tingle that's not creepy. She was very much... She liked him a lot. She's like, the stamp guy, yeah, go get that stamp. Go get the stamp. Let's see what the new stamp card is. It's like a Tingle you're happy to see versus the Tingle that you actually saw where you're like, ugh.
No, that's why it's pointed. It's pointedly not Tingle. It's very much like, we don't really... Maybe we shouldn't do Tingle anymore.
But it's like all the parallels are very accurate, but at the same time, like, he's just generally okay to be around. Like, he's not weird and upsetting every time you see him. Whereas Tingle, like in Majora's Mask, Tingle's not great, but he's not around that much. But in Wind Waker, he's running a slavery operation.
In Wind Waker, he's Wario. I mean, basically, isn't it? I mean, it's like Wario in WarioWare, where he's like, you're just running some sort of scam, and he's got all these other people like in on the scam, and he's just gonna take all their money that they make for him. Basically, like that feels like they kind of got there with Tingle before they even really got there with Wario in WarioWare. Although, I mean, the first game was probably right around the same time as Wind Waker. But yeah, it's just like, I'm surprised how much more kind of sinister and off-putting they made Tingle just from like his first appearance to his second one. Unless, did it maybe show up in the Oracles in between? I forget.
I can't remember. But yeah, he's very upsetting in Wind Waker. And I can't ever imagine stumbling upon Stamp Rally Guy and finding that he has enslaved multiple individuals forced them to dress as him.
Yes, yeah.
Somehow also putting them to work in his whole stamp rally thing. But yeah, that's where we're at. So, yeah, like I said, all that being said, I enjoyed this game a lot. It's very good. I just think it's got some weird uneven points that come from them trying something different. And so I can't be too mad about it because that's what we ask of them. And the Switch lived long enough to have 3 original Zelda games, which feels like a first. I mean, bearing in mind that, of course, the Game Boy had 3, but 2 of them came out at the same time.
And also, it's GBC, so it's kind of like, how separate do you consider that? I mean, it was certainly a long period of time, but also, it's kind of different hardware, and they kind of let them do some different stuff. So, yeah, I know what you mean.
And also gave them an excuse to make another game, too.
Yeah. They're doing the Pokemon. Yeah. It was a post-Pokemon game. Perhaps is arguably the most pertinent fact rather than it's just post-GBC. So even though in this case it's like, no, these are legitimately kind of separate campaigns, it kind of gave them probably the feeling that this is something they could do. They could do these kind of concurrent product launches, which, because they originally, was envisioned as 3 games and more like remakes of NES, Seasons does have clearly a basis in the original Legend of Zelda. So there's a little bit of that sort of original vision sort of hidden in those, but that's what it ended up being, is these 2 games and distinct campaigns but ultimately you can sort of, if you beat both, you had a true last boss and all that kind of stuff. But very definitely a different era by the time they got there, because Pokemon had just revitalized everything, and a lot of people would have been playing that also on GBA, because it came out right around the time the actual, they were GBC games, but they came out right when the GBA came out at the same, really close, right? I want to say, to launch.
Yeah, I played them on the GBA. Yes. Yeah, so it was very close. But yeah, that's it. It is weird to be talking about a Zelda game like the first time on the show after already being done with the game, but at the same time, after everybody else has already talked about it, so I don't have a whole ton to say. So,
well, and obviously it's not as massive in scope as the other 2 that have been on Switch, but I mean, it is. I will say the Overworld, for instance, it has got that sort of feeling of being a bit more, expansive than its equivalents in other games, which kind of makes things like, you can actually ride a horse in a top-down Zelda overworld, feel somewhat more warranted, because it's not so tiny that you don't feel like actually having that faster form of traversal here, there. I mean, there's a lot of warp points for this overworld, and just a lot of warp points in general, which I feel like is somewhat reflective of the notion that they might think, that they don't necessarily know, but how you got to a place, and maybe you use some really fiddly method or something. So it kind of feels like, let's be pretty generous with our warp points so people could get back anywhere, even if they got here some really wacky way originally or something. But it applies even to the dungeons and stuff as well. It just seems like it's a very kind of a general approach. They wanted to put that you couldn't take traversal too much for granted, so you better have that stuff in there. But with the overworld, I really do I like the fact that you've got so many, of those very direct references to, especially Link to the Past's overworld. You'll get things like when you're in the desert doing the rift, you actually see the entrance to the desert dungeon in A Link to the Past just floating in the void. And then when you actually fix the rift, you come back and you realise, that's where we are. We've been standing right at the entrance to that dungeon in Link to the Past. That's where we've been this whole time, and kind of, then there's just this big, extra expanse of desert, beyond it. kind of thing. And then like stuff like there's just like this weird side quest in the dungeon. Well, I guess it's kind of like the first dungeon. It was the Eastern Palace in A Link to the Past.
Yes.
Like there's just that thundercloud guy chilling out in there for some reason. Like if you somebody has played A Link to the Past as many times as I have, and seeing these kinds of landmarks and stuff. Kind of there, so what we expect them to be. I mean, there's discrepancies. Like, I think Kakariko Village isn't where it would have been originally. Like, it's been kind of moved out. But, Kakariko Village always seems to move about in these games. For whatever reason, like in Twilight Princess, like why it's turned into a sort of dusty western town in that after like that was the timeline where nothing bad particularly happened. I mean,
yes,
it's just something about that community. What can you say,
Greg?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I certainly spent a bit more time with Zelda since last week. Just kind of mopping up. I did get all the echoes without too much trouble. Just doing more kind of finding more pieces of heart and things like that, and just going around the world, feeling like as you already mentioned, James, the whole way that map works and not being terribly granular. It definitely between that and just my sort of absent-mindedness, there's definitely parts of the map that are just like I did not explore this nearly as thoroughly as I imagined I did. So, like for instance, I still have 4 stamp rally things to find, and I'm really a bit at a loss at the moment. Of like, I feel like I have combed it a bit better at this point, and yet there are still some missing. But I would imagine again it's that same problem, right? It's like it's a place you think you've been, and kind of given a good kind of account, a good sweep of it, and in fact, it's very partial. Like I talked about not having found the way to have multiple accessories equipped yet, where even though I'd finished the game and had loads of accessories last week, and it's like, yeah, well, I finally did nail it down, and it was just somewhere I'd been early in the game and had not been back to because just at that point I didn't have any use for it and had not explored it very thoroughly. But, so just all that kind of mopping up and stuff. But, like I said, mainly it's just been kind of fun wandering around a top-down Zelda overworld again and finding some of these secrets and stuff, even if a lot of them aren't terribly consequential. But other than that, we've had F-Zero explosion of stuff happening.
Yes.
It's all F-Zero all the time. So, yeah, I mean, it's the anniversary of F-Zero 99 and a little bit of a pleasant surprise because I feel like one of their previous updates, they had mentioned something, I don't know whether it was like one of the Mirror Grand Prix or something, and it was just like, okay, this is basically like it for new tracks. Like, there won't be more new tracks than this or something. And yet, we get to this anniversary event, and now it's like, oh, guess what? We've got a cup from the Satellaview game. And, these are different tracks. Like, I mean, most of them are just the similar themes. We've got a Mute City 4, we've finally got a Big Blue 2 and a Silence 2 and stuff, but, and then you've got Sandstorm, which is like a variant of Sand Ocean where you actually get, a storm coming in and it affects your visibility and stuff. But, these are unique track kind of variants here, where you're taking the layouts, from previous iterations of those track themes and you're modifying them and stuff. So yeah, that I thought was pretty cool. And if you could finish one of those cups when they have a Grand Prix event, then you get like the sort of skin of the vehicles that were in the Satellaview game. So for their like equivalents of the Blue Falcon and the Fire Stingray and so forth. So yeah, that was a nice little touch. Seemed to kind of juice the participation for a bit. You can have some extremely robust Grand Prix. It's so different when you play with 99 people. It is. It's just, especially because when you're playing in a Grand Prix, you are so rewarded for getting KOs on cars early because it permanently increases your health bar and therefore your boost capacity. they're so fucking aggressive when you fight. You know, they're just looking for blood from lap 1, race 1. So yeah, it's an experience, and I think I've mentioned this before. You know, when you get to the last track of a 5-track Grand Prix, there's always an element of an anticlimax about it, because what stops happening in that is the whole thing of like all the previous tracks, people are getting whittled down. It's like, okay, if you you start with 99, but it's like, yeah, if you're not in the top, 90, you get eliminated after a certain lap, and then 85 and 80 at the end of the race. And so there's this constant pressure to stay ahead of the elimination. And especially when you get to that penultimate race where it's like, okay, we start with 40, we're going to eliminate 20 by the end of the race. So it's like half the field is going to go. It is competitive. People are boosting to the limit. It's pretty nuts. And then you get to the last one and it's like, oh, well, just, there's 20 people, just finish the race. That pressure is kind of gone. And a lot of the time, like I say, you want to get a reward for doing it, like the skin of the different car and all that. So it's like, okay, this is actually a bit laid back. The wild card with this, of course, is like the rest of the tracks. I've never played this before, but this is relatively rare, and we'll pick up on this in a moment, but relatively rare case of anything F-Zero that I haven't actually touched before, like Silence 2, right. The last one. So like you get to the first kind of, the early going on the first lap, and okay, we've got a narrow kind of passageway and a really sharp left turn, where if you don't take the turn sharply enough to be able to hit a ramp, you're going to be stuck in a narrow pathway with a bunch of mines. And when there's even just 20 cars, like, yeah, good luck avoiding them, unless you like deliberately came in like behind everyone and let them take the bitter pill, I guess. But again, I didn't know what was coming, so I was like, okay, no, I've hit the ramp, I'm over the mines, we're okay. And then you get onto the next turn, and the next wacky feature is all the barriers are ramps. And, and so it's like, oh shit. And somebody just bumps me. I go flying off the ramp, bang, crashed out straight away. And it's so much for that anticlimax. Yeah, it's not quite as safe as I imagined, was it? So yeah, but after then, if you see a track once in Grand Prix mode, you unlock it for practice. And you could do a little time trial thing to, kind of get a reward, like a background for your avatar or whatever. And so, yeah, you can learn the tracks there, and I did that. And, I've finished the Grand Prix with a couple of the car sits there. But just, yeah, nice to have that kind of back, some of that feeling of when F-Zero 99 started a year ago, of just the full-on chaos of it, and how sort of rough and tumble it could get. That was really nice to see. And then the other piece of it is just before around about the time we kind of started recording, is they updated the GBA expansion pack part of the NSO with the latter two GBA games, the GP Legend and then Climax, which we talked about this. I was hoping that this was something they would do, because again, that third and final GBA game, Climax, that only came out of Japan, is basically, other than the Satellaview stuff, it's the only F-Zero I've not played. So yeah, I'll be quite looking forward to playing that and seeing what it holds. I mean, my memory of how it reviewed and all that is not exactly crystal clear. It was quite a long time ago. But, I think it was heavily, based on what had happened with the GP Legend, that it was Suzak who would go on to make Wario Master of Disguise, that was not terribly well thought of on DS. No. But they had made GP Legend as well, which was tying into the anime that was running at the time. And, I guess it was not that long after that. So as you'd expect, it's based on that, but it's got extra stuff, including like a track editor and other stuff. So yeah, I had only played GP Legend on Wii U Virtual Console. I didn't own it originally. But, I played that quite a bit. Obviously, it owed a lot more to F-Zero X than, the Maximum Velocity did, the launch day F-Zero game. Especially, with the way it was tied into the anime and stuff. So, Yeah, be kind of interested to see how that turns out, having not played it all these years, but also nice that they, kind of keeping things going with F-Zero 99 now. I don't know how many more Satellaview tracks there might be to update, but, as long as they can sort of... I'm kind of impressed, even though, yes, they're doing specific things to spike interest, but I'm kind of impressed that it is still, like, functioning, to the level that it is a year on, because you did have to, I'm sure we mentioned it at the time, like compared to stuff like Tetris, Pac-Man, these kind of all-time, huge,
Right.
like mindshare name recognition kind of games, you did have to worry about how badly, F-Zero participation would fall off, and it's like, you will get certain times you go into a mode and it is going to be dominated by bots and stuff, but it's still been even before the updates, like, better than I might have thought given everything. So I feel I've done a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, no, I think the I think it's definitely the one they've supported for the longest time, because I mean it doesn't have any kind of limitation in its lifespan. I remember the other ones were announced like it'll be available for a limited time. This one is just going.
Certainly Super Mario 35, right? That was very explicit with the whole,
right.
We're tying it into the 35th anniversary thing and all that. Like, yeah, that was very upfront about the fact that it was a time limited kind of thing.
Which was a shame, because it was, I feel like it was the for me at least, the most enjoyable of the set.
Yeah, it was pretty. I enjoyed it. I just came up short of like beating every level at some point. It was literally 8-4. Like I was playing 8-4 like the day that it was going down. And I nearly did it. I didn't quite. Which the reward was you got to play as Luigi, I believe. That was it. But just like, well, they've got to shut the game down, so I've had no time to peacock and go, look, I'm playing as Luigi, guys. I must be really fucking good at this.
You could have taken a screenshot and then posted it on the internet and told everybody that you.
I mean,
really
I do
good.
take screenshots, but I don't paste them to the internet. It's only like as a note function. It's just like, well, if a character says something, in a game where it's like, oh, you might want to check this area. It's like, what's a lot more reliable than my memory? A screenshot. That is mostly what my
That's true.
What my screenshots are for. The whole sharing a bit. I've not really done that.
I think we need to get you into the era of screenshotting to gloat, because that's an important asset.
Oh, but, I mean, that wallpaper I got for doing the Grand Dick Waving Galaxy, whatever, in Super Mario Galaxy 2. I mean, I cherished that. I treasured it.
My favorite part is because you sent that to someone, I was able to get it from them, so I could also send it along.
Yeah.
So
yes, I feel good. I'm paying it forward. I suffered so others didn't have to.
Only one person had to do. It's possible that only one person ever beat that stupid stage, and that everyone else was just riding off somebody else's accomplishments.
And
I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
They did kind of, really, they actually kind of took that forward with the Miiverse stamps, wasn't it? I mean, that was the thing where it was okay. I've got a stamp of Luigi's face that says I beat every level in Super Mario 3D World with him.
That's all I need.
That's like they had it down then. Really, we've gone backwards. Is what's happened.
I mean, I don't know why that's a surprise. I feel like that's all they ever do.
Miiverse and everything associated was just too good, wasn't it? Too pure for this world.
We didn't know how good we had it.
No, in a way that is actually kind of true.
We didn't know how good we had it with Miiverse. There's a sentence that is in no way, shape, or form true.
We also, do like being able to start the Switch and it like starting up in a reasonable period of time. I mean, I feel like we do have to mention that as a counterbalanced.
No. I liked the Switch to start whenever the Wii U to start just whenever it felt like it. I thought that was always exciting. Like, is it going to start now? Who can say? Is it going to start in 30 seconds? Maybe. I liked that it was so bad they had to write an app for the gamepad so that you can bypass a bunch of other shit loading just so you can get to your game in a reasonable amount of time. I think that was swell. But no, now we just have a boring old reliable Switch. I mean, who wants reliable?
Yeah, I find that's pretty funny you mentioned that, because really when everybody was like, oh, this Switch OS, it's so plain. Surely they're going to upgrade it over time. Nah.
No, but we didn't even get folders. We got tags.
No. Yeah, they did nothing.
No.
I find that so hilarious. They just didn't do anything. People were like, "Wow, it's really boring." I'm like, "Yep, it's going to stay that way."
Yeah, because it's easier for us to keep this thing like even remotely reliable because it's boring. It's like, congratulations, boring means successful.
Yeah, but it works though,
Yeah, it does. Like that's the thing. Working is more important than exciting.
Yeah.
Which is why I'll never be a designer.
Yeah.
Ever.
But that's also why I think people like the PlayStation UI, even though Sony is really trying to cram shit into it now.
Yeah.
They like that more than the Xbox UI, because the Xbox UI is just clunky and busy and has a whole bunch of ads and stuff, and so UI does matter in game consoles these days. It really does. It's like, I just want it to just stay out of the way. I don't want a whole bunch of stuff crammed into my face. I don't want to see a whole ton of ads. I don't mind ads, but just make them tasteful. Don't make the whole thing like a billboard like the Xbox does.
What I'm hearing is you want the 360 blade back.
I like the 360 blades. I wish they never would have went. Don't even get me started on the Xbox UI. They need to just completely overhaul that. I maybe don't want the 360 blades back because that's a very dated design, but I feel like I really wish that they would give one of the things that makes Xbox feel so generic is the Windowsness of it, and I wish that they would bring back a custom front end for that.
So I'm going to counter you on the Xbox blades thing. I think having to LB and RB through every window was very fun, and I enjoyed it immensely.
You don't sound sincere when you say that.
No, I don't know why you would think that. I'm very sincere.
Just the concept of blades is very like 2003 to me. It's like reminds me of like VMware or something.
I agree. The concept of Blade, the Vampire Hunter, was very 2003.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking in virtual environments.
I know.
Hey,
All right,
the first one was like 98 when it's on screen. Yeah. Obviously with Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. Boy, I can't wait for them to just reboot that franchise.
Yeah. It seems like they've been trying, but they've been running into some difficulty. I'm not aware of the particulars, but
it's a little bit like Concord, of just keep throwing good money after bad.
Yeah.
Oh well. Greg, did you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I'll do this for this week.
We've got on what I will call the most random tangent in a while, which is saying a lot. John, what have you been up to?
All right. Well, I'm going to finally talk about FC25. I've been playing it for a couple of weeks. Got in on the early access, and what that really means is just that you have time to kind of build up your team a little bit more than the plebes, than the unwashed masses that just buy the game on launch day.
So pay to win.
That game is pay to win, pretty much. The FC25, it's funny because it's the kind of game where it's really the only game in town if you want a kind of fully fledged soccer game that has licenses, which is really what this game is really why EA has this market cornered, is because they were the ones that went out, just like they did with the NFL. The reason why Madden is the only NFL game is because EA negotiated an exclusive license with the NFL, so therefore they're the only game in town because nobody cares about an NFL football game without the NFL license or the Players Association or whatever.
Right.
And FC25 is much the same, where EA are the ones that went to all of these different leagues because, of course, in World Soccer, you have to go to the Premier League and have a deal with them, and La Liga have a deal with them, and so you have to go to all these different leagues. And so EA are the only ones that basically put the money out there. I'm sure there's other entities that would have probably had money, but they were basically the ones that got in there first and signed all these deals, right? So FIFA, FC, whatever you want to call it, that's why year after year, it's kind of the only game in town. So what this means is that EA really doesn't have to put a whole lot of effort year after year in improving these things and making it solid, right? So that's why the FC community is pretty funny, because everybody hates it, but or hates things about these games, but there's really no other other reasonable alternative to play. So everybody's just kind of like, hate the game, see you next year. So
Great.
That's sort of the way it is, and I mean, generally EA is not liked anyways, but partially it's because of stuff like this. So and really the main complaints with the game, it's just, I mean, I said this about even in the I think I said this when I talked about FC24. I said that FC24 is effectively a copy and paste of FIFA 23. Well, FC25 is pretty much a copy and paste of FC24, to the point where, and I can't really substantiate this, I don't totally believe it, but I've watched a couple videos on YouTube where guys are saying, you know what, I'm pretty sure that this actually was a copy and paste, to the point where I'm seeing bugs that were in FC24 that were fixed.
Hell yeah.
That were fixed over time in FC24 come right back in FC25. So it feels like it was almost an earlier version of FC24 that was just copy and pasted. But so they have added some stuff, right? So they did add a mode, kind of a 5-on-5 and NBA Jam-ish. It's not as over the top as that, but it has, like, the crazy announcer and all that kind of stuff. It's called Rush Mode. And so it's really 4-on-4 PvP instead of having.
I'm going to choose to interpret that like the band Rush.
No, that would give it an air of quality or lasting appreciation, or a
try
progressivism that doesn't seem very welcome in terms of the furthering the art form that does, I guess, is not really what these games are about, from what you've said,
exactly. Yeah, pushing the envelope, creating something that will last for many years. These are concepts that are absolutely alien to FC. Any of these games.
The last one is forbidden. Like, they want you to reset every year so they can get you back in their fucking pay to win thing.
Absolutely, that is the business model here. Make no mistake. And generally the way it goes, and you can, you can opt in. You can opt into, like, buying the packs and all that kind of stuff. But really, the hook there is that if you really want to compete at the highest levels, you have to buy packs, because those packs contain the best players, and so those do that math. You basically buy these packs until you get a really, really powerful team, if you choose to do that. I do not choose to do that, because you're literally throwing money at nothing, because the way it works is that they release at the start of the game, they release a base set of players, right? And they might be rated 88, 89. They're all golds, right? They have like golds, and then they have different kind of like team of the week. They have they have a base set of players, and then over time they have like a team of the week, a team of the month, and so they release new improved versions of each card, right? So you might start off and really good player, like maybe like Kylian Mbappe. Like, he's at the start of the game, he is a gold card rated 91. And over the course of both club seasons, stuff like Champions League, all the kind of different competitions that they have in the soccer world, he will do certain things. And so they'll say, hey, he did really good in this tournament, we're going to release a card and this card, whereas his base card was a 91, it's now a 93, and it has better stats. So by the time you get to the very end of the game, you have a lot of cards, like my FC24 team has a bunch of 98s. I don't know if it has a 99 or not, but the thing is, they start putting these really good, these really high level versions of player cards into the main packs. So over time, the team that you start off with, which is a bunch of gold level players, probably like maybe high 80s, eventually they're crap. So it's this sort of kind of like year-long economy of, starts off with gold players, they release more players, and then, people try to get those out of packs and make their team better. And so by the time the season is over, at the end of it, you have a team that's really good, but then the cycle resets. So that's sort of what you're dealing with here. And I think as long as you kind of don't really take it too seriously and don't try to get too sweaty with it, I think you're fine. But I think where love bleeds over into hate is when people really try to push it and they try to, really, really do well at the game and have the best players and have a really good club. And that means that you have to start buying packs and kind of that type of like gambling, the kind of like rolling the dice sort of thing. And really putting that pressure on you. And then, you start dealing with, things in the gameplay. Like this game, I've never seen a game that is this buggy, really. And the thing is, FC24 was buggy too, especially on the PlayStation. I played FC24 on the Xbox, and it was not as buggy as the PlayStation version. And in fact, I'm really surprised that Sony has actually let this game release with the amount of just game-breaking bugs that it has. Not in the sense that it like destroys your save file or something like that, but there are bugs. If you play this game for an hour, you will have to close it and restart it probably at least twice, I would say. Because
how does that affect online matches?
Well, it's funny you should bring that up because I've had a bug. There was a bug last week where this one was great. This is really the worst one I've encountered, and they did fix it, I think, pretty quickly because it wasn't there for long. But playing rush matches, and of course there's like weekly objectives, daily objectives, kind of stuff like, play 2 games, score 3 goals. So there's a lot of stuff like that you can do, and you can also unlock players with weekly objectives and stuff like that. So, but one of the weekly objectives was to play X amount of rush games, and you get points for games. So, I'm sitting there, grinding out these rush games, and so what was happening was I would play the entire rush game, which isn't very long, but probably takes you about 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. And then you would win or lose, but then when it went to this screen that was kind of the summary screen, you would disconnect from the server.
Oh, good.
So what that would do, and it would freeze, right? So I had to shut the game down, bring the game back up. And then it would say, when I went back into Ultimate Team, it said, hey, you disconnected from your last match. So we're going to give you a penalty, and you won't get as many coins, because you earn coins for currency. You can buy packs and stuff like that, right? On top of like the real, there's real money currency, and then the currency that you earn in game. All of the stuff is, it's all that stuff is in there. But it said, yeah, so you're going to get less coins for your future matches. So not only was the game freezing on me, but the game disconnected me and considered me at fault for disconnecting, and so it penalized me, like as if I just shut the game down and started it over again. So there's stuff like that, and then there's certain things where you'll go to open up a pack, the game will freeze, you just close it down, start it up again. Thankfully, it starts up pretty quickly. But it's amazing, and this is like a long-running theme. This is not just an FC25. These kinds of bugs were in FC24. They were in FIFA 23, and I don't know. I've never seen for a game that is so popular and has so many people playing it. It is so buggy.
Bugs.
Yes, I mean these are very obvious bugs that you run into. These are not out of the way kind of edge case bugs. I mean, these are, you try to open up a pack, like you do something, you complete an objective in game, you play 2 games and you get a free pack. You open it up and the game freezes. And you're like, okay, well, time to shut it down, open it back up. And so this is why over time, people are very, very sour about the game, how it plays. There's a lot of lag on the servers. The servers are notoriously bad. So there's just a lot of animosity towards EA and around this game. Just because EA it's just pretty obvious that they know it's a cash cow, and they just don't give a shit in really making sure that it's solid, stable, polished. It's not polished. This is a very unpolished game. And it's too bad because everything that's here, there's a YouTuber, Jambu, who I think he used to be a pro player, but he had a really good video that I watched, and he said that like there's a lot of cool concepts in here, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Rush is really fun, can be janky, and but it's not meant to be like, it's not meant to be kind of simulation-ish. It's just meant to be kind of over the top, and
right.
Offsides is very generous in Rush mode, but there's just a lot of cool concepts here, but it's also not optimized across platforms, so you'll have people doing stuff like they'll play on PC and they'll say, oh my God, it feels like a different game. It's so much faster. The gameplay is so much crisper. PS5 has a lot of animations that people complain about. It's very sluggish. And then what people do also is they'll play the PS4 version of the game on PS5 because it doesn't have all these animations. So the game feels faster because it's not trying to do all these crazy animations like that are, quote unquote realistic. And so there's all of these different things with this game.
That is ridiculous.
It's really ridiculous. And so I enjoy it. I kind of enjoy it for what it is. I really don't take it too seriously. Certainly not even. The thing is too, it's like I really don't play a lot of PvP right now. I did, and I was just getting absolutely smashed. But going back to kind of the pay to win thing, if you start off early on in the season when you just have your normal gold players, where probably, the players that you get to start off with are like maybe 82s, 83s, maybe even less 79s. And if you try to go online and play other people, you'll get smashed because you have the whales who are sitting there, they're packing like right out of the gate, first day, they're sitting there, they're buying packs and getting players that are 85 and 86. And you're just getting smashed. And so I think my team's almost at the point I have a bunch of 86 players, some 87s, maybe 189. I feel like maybe I could start going back out and playing some PvP, but I was just getting wrecked. Whereas it's not really a skill thing because in FC24 with my 98 team, I was smashing people. People were just disconnecting all the time on me. Every once in a while, I'd play somebody really good and they would destroy me. But I would say probably about 50-50 where, I'm going up 3-0 on somebody and they just disconnect and just give me the win because they can't come back on me. So it really is like you definitely, skill definitely does enter into it, but also it's like you'll play some teams and the players are so good that they'll just walk up to you and like take the ball off of you. Like you can barely get like a shot off against some teams, right? And that's just because the players are just better. Like this person has gone out and they've probably bought some packs and they've gotten some sweet players out of there, and those players are just better than yours. They just do everything better and you just can't compete against them. So that's why I don't really take it too seriously. Because if you do take it seriously, it will absolutely drive you crazy. But I'm enjoying it. Again, it's like, I enjoy, soccer video games. So from that standpoint, it's great, but it's just, there's just a lot of jankiness and just like I said, a very, very unpolished game, shockingly so. Especially when I feel like they release things like college football and I've never heard really a bad thing about that game.
No, people love that game.
Yeah. And so,
they had years to make it, though. That's the difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think this game is really a victim of its own success because it's not even. It's like they're trying to do the Call of Duty thing, but like not even that. They do those on 3-year cycles. That's why they moved to that because it was so difficult. Right. Doing this on the yearly cycle that they do it on doesn't make any sense because it's at the point now where they really need to. They need to overhaul this entire game, and I don't know if there's plans to do that. I haven't heard anything. But the thing is, too, the other thing is that there's really no competitors coming into the market either, even though, like, the thing is they did get rid of FIFA. They did part ways with FIFA, but FIFA doesn't really do anything for you if you get the FIFA
no,
license.
And they're going to sign with some esport cyber game, fucking whatever's the scammiest option. That's what they're going to sign with.
Yeah, and that doesn't really
Can
get you anything.
Can we get crypto in here? We get NFTs.
And it's like all you really care about in those games is just like the NFL. It's just like Madden, right? What you're there for is you're there for the real teams and the real players. So, and this is the game that has them. So it's kind of has the market cornered in that respect.
FIFA gonna FIFA.
Yeah. So nothing has changed. If you've ever heard in the past couple of years, probably the last 10 years, people bitching. I think the general community consensus is that I think FIFA 17 was the last one that was really good, and it's been pretty garbage since then. But that's the thing. You hear a lot of you kind of have to divorce yourself from the community a little bit too, because it's like
they're
going
salty.
on Reddit. Yes, they're very salty, and it's like you go on Reddit. It's like going on Reddit. Everybody on Reddit is there because they hate something. You're not there on Reddit, or you want to watch someone get into like a car accident or something like that. That's basically Reddit, or you're looking for kitten photos. That's pretty much the three people that go on Reddit. And these are definitely the salty faction that just wants to go on there and bitch. But no, I mean, as a soccer game, it's functional. It's passable, I will say, as a soccer game, and really, it's the only thing out there. But yeah, very janky.
It is a shame that Pro Evolution died.
Yeah,
it's not dead, but it's eFootball, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's a shame that it's not a viable competitor anymore, because that was its role. Like, it was the viable competitor, and it had been that for a long time, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, and now much like everything else, I mean, pretty much EA. I still don't know how all of these exclusive deals are not a monopoly from EA. I still don't understand that, because they literally prevent other competitors from coming into the market. So, which, as far as I know, is the definition of a monopoly. Even though, yes, the NFL and all these different leagues can license whoever they want, they have the complete rights to have an exclusive contract. But I don't see how it's not stifling competition. So I don't know.
Probably because EA doesn't have the scope to be monopolistic to be judged monopolistic because of how they define product. They're not defining it as like a soccer game. Mm-hmm. They're defining it as game, period. So that's probably why they get away with it. And EA hasn't done a huge purchase in a while that I recall, so that might be a factor too.
Yep. So, but yeah, I just wish EA would take this series more seriously than it does, because it could really be cool. There's actually a lot of cool stuff in there, and it is fun to play. But it's just really unoptimized, really janky, really buggy, really just really unpolished, and you can just tell that they just spit these things out because they know they can. So, well,
I mean, it already makes them a ton of money. So, if they could invest a little more in it. Now, I get why 3-year cycles would be hard with this game versus, a Call of Duty, because the Call of Duty games don't have to necessarily be, I don't want to say related, but they can be more different than 2 FIFA games can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
so
you're also
does give them freedom.
Yeah, and you're also they're not really time bound to anything, and in fact, the FIFA games, FC games they've become more time bound because the card releases are now linked to real life events. So if a player does well in the Champions League, they release. So they have released a team of the Champions League card set. And that goes out there, and it's the next level of cards. So there's always that sense of being on the cutting edge. But what players get better are based on their real life performance. So they do that too. So it's brilliant from the standpoint of capitalism. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the Sony's baseball game did that too.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody would have a major event and they would tie in content to it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other stuff in this game too that really I haven't really dug too much into. Like, they have a manager mode where you can manage a team, which is really in depth. You can of course create your own character, and then take that character through an entire season. There's a lot of stuff in this package, just a lot of cool stuff. There's like a clubs mode where you can take your character in there and you can kind of join like almost like a guild. You can either like kind of like you can create your own clan or join a clan, and then play rush games in that context, and it's really cool. But yeah, just some of the bugs in it, I'm just like, come on, man, Jesus.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'll talk a little bit about is Diablo 4 released Vessel of Hatred. That's their expansion. So new class there is Spiritborn. If anybody played Diablo 3, it plays a little bit like the monk. The monk is very much like dodge around and then quick melee attacks, which is very similar to this, except it's more the new area in this expansion is called Nahantu, and it's a jungle, and so it's a lot of this is kind of the spirits of the jungle sort of themed, this new class. And so you can choose a particular spirit. There's like a jaguar spirit and like 3 other ones, and there's like, I think it's like a jaguar, a centipede, so like kind of like jungle, like 4 different jungle animals that affect what attacks you have. You kind of choose them as your spirit animal, if you will, and so it changes your attacks accordingly, like almost kind of like elemental, like the jaguar does this kind of elemental attacks and centipede does these kind of things. So it's cool, just working through the story right now. And so I have to go back on all my old characters, and all of their gear is now, of course, outdated, which feels almost kind of World of Warcrafty in a little bit. And I've read some articles where they're saying that Diablo 4 is kind of getting more MMO light, and I can see that. I don't mind it at all, but it is kind of funny to see these things like, oh man, I have to go back and all of the gear that my character used to have, it's all marked as outdated and stuff. So, but they also have stuff like what they call Realm Walker events, which are group events where you kill a monster, it opens up a portal, you hop into there, and then you get some goodies out of there. So it's not too far out of the box. There's nothing too crazy, but it's good. I'm enjoying it so far. But also at the same time, I played so much Diablo 4 where I'm just like, I kind of go in there and I'm like, okay, I have to check that checkbox, that one. Okay, let's go. Let's level. And I just kind of go through the whole thing, So it's like right now my impression is like, okay, it's more Diablo 4. That's not a bad thing. I can't say I'm bowled over by it or wowed by it. It's just more like, okay, the world is bigger. All right, I have to go. It's like I just fit this new area into my Diablo 4 routine, and then I just go forward and do that. Yeah, and also you don't know with a lot of these classes, like you get your builds online from Icy Veins or what have you, whatever site you go to. I usually use Icy Veins. The build that you start off with and that you level with, I don't really like the one that I'm using. It's from Icy Veins. I'm not a huge fan of the build I'm using for Spiritborn, but I'm also just leveling, so who cares? Usually you get to end game and then switch your build entirely to something just totally different. So you usually have to really, like right now, the main thing I'm doing with my character is I'm really just unlocking all of the points that I can allot to my build.
Fair.
And doing that. So once I do that, once I get all the way deep into the end game, I'm playing a seasonal character. So it's kind of like I don't have to do any of the story unless the new story I'm doing, but I don't have to do the original story. So, no, but it's good. I mean, it's more Diablo. I have no complaints about that. So there you go.
Cool.
That's it.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Hopefully, Guillaume will be back next week. You can send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. I've missed that. rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. gmail.com. And it is late, so we're going to wrap the show here. And with that, Greg, what is our end music for this week?
Well, a few days after this episode is published, on the 17th of October, we'll have the release of the latest Mario Party game, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and accordingly, Reg McFly has got a music request in tied into that. So it says, with the upcoming release of a new Mario Party, one I know you all await with bated breath, I'd like to request a music track from Mario Party 4, specifically Koopa's Seaside Soiree. As a song, it revisits a Mario Party tune from 3, I think, but it is also just an intense earworm. That was the last Mario Party game I played with friends at university before we got, quote-unquote, too old for such nonsense. So it has a lot of affinity for me. And, as you might imagine, it's got a very tropical kind of energy, if you're thinking about Cooper's Seaside, Cooper Trooper Beach, that kind of thing. Yeah, so can't say as I've played very many Mario Parties myself to have the most in-depth knowledge of how it relates to previous soundtracks and whatnot, but I think it's very nice on its own terms as well.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to depart. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.